All right, so in this video, I want to talk about how we can let the superintendent know that we're making his or her life easier with takt planning. This is a concept that I think is so important because when somebody hires Elevator LeanTakt, which is not the only thing that you can do, but if you get help or you're implementing takt or implementing lean on a project site, there's definitely a sell, right? Let me kick it off by saying one thing, then I want to give that question over to you. When we visit a client or we're talking to them for the first time about doing work or implementing the takt production system, the first thing that they ask is, will we have any problems? Where will this fail? And without any negativity whatsoever, I always say, well, you know what I always say, it's typically if the owner's going to let you do what they need to do, or what we need to do, we don't have problems with trade partners. If there's going to be a breakdown, it will be with the superintendent, not because of any negativity, not because we're criticizing, but because that person has to be bought in. So in that light, Kevin, how do we convince superintendents that, or show the value that we're trying to make their lives easier with takt?
That's a great question. I've thought a ton about that. I think it's important that the superintendents see value really quickly.
Okay.
So one of the things we do at LeanTakt and Elevate, and our engineers do, is they immediately dive in on the problems that the superintendent is having. So they take the phases that are the most problematic, whether that's the phases that are coming up first, or maybe it's a complex project, and they have something that they're really trying to make a schedule for and hold people to and understand and really plan well.
Okay.
And we dive in there first. When we do that, a lot of times they'll see that value quickly.
Okay.
And that's really the key. If we prolong their, really grasping the value quickly, it's tough. It's a tough sell after that to make it happen. So, but I will say this, all that planning has to happen anyway.
Yeah.
And it's either going to happen on a piece of paper, on a computer screen prior to the work happening, or it's going to happen in the field in a whole bunch of hard situations and meetings and things when things are actually, not going well.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff has to happen anyway. And if we can just connect the super to the tools, the visual environment, the technical, a lot of times they know how to build.
Yes.
But it's like, hey, can we just lay this out on paper in a way that helps you to see it clearly and everybody else to see it clearly so we can make it right? That's really the key, I think. And it's got to be fast. We've got to do it right away. If we lose a super, if a super doesn't grasp on right away, it becomes pretty hard.
One of the things that you always riff on is listening to them. Preach to me about that.
Yeah. So a lot of times when we come into a situation, people are looking at us to be like, here's the answers.
Yeah.
Let me lay it out for you. And that doesn't build trust at all. And like I said, most of the time, 99% of the time, the super knows how they want to build something. They've got good experience. And not only the super, but the trade partners, right? The foreman, we involve them in the conversations too. And so it's like, get in a room with them or in a meeting, in a Zoom meeting, it can be online. We do it online all the time. And just start asking questions. Just start hey, what about this phase? Let's talk about the flow of work of this phase. How do you see that going, right? Yeah. And just ask really open-ended, really generalized questions and start to lay the whole thing out and get them to talk, get them to give you all of their wisdom. Because that's what we need. We need to get their wisdom down on paper. We need to get the foreman's wisdom down on paper. And when we do that, we really build trust and they see the value really pretty quickly generally.
The goal is, and I've never thought about this before, but the goal is to represent the team's plan on paper.
Yeah.
Not a plan for people to follow. A team plan on paper represented how they think together with common understanding.
It's so brilliant.
Go ahead. Yes.
It's so brilliant. What we're looking for is the set of like divisions or deliverables, right? How do I describe this? It's almost like we have the art supplies to paint something in a certain way.
Yes.
They've got it in their head. They've
Yes.
got the masterpiece in their head. And we're like, hey, if we do this with these art supplies, that's a bad analogy, but if we do that with these art supplies, you'll come out with a beautiful plan in the end and a beautiful or a higher chance at better execution in the end, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like time by location and takt and, all the math behind what you're really planning and thinking and all of your zone maps and zoning strategies and standard space units and work density and all the things that in their head they're wrestling with. And they understand those concepts very well.
Yeah.
They just don't see them on paper in
Yes.
front of them to help everybody make those decisions.
Dude, you're going to love this. I'm reading a book called... oh my gosh, what is it called? Anyway, it's talking about excellence and in the first part of your life and then excellence in the latter part of your life, and how the first part was like really like fluid intelligence, and then when people get our age, you go 45 plus, right? Then it becomes more crystallized intelligence, where you're building not just fixed like with the same opinions, but you're building on what you've already learned or your masterpiece or your master thesis early on. And one of the things he says in the book is there's a big difference between how Westerners, we're Westerners, so that's not an insult, but and Easterners approach art, right? Most of the time and I love your analogy, that stands, and I'm going to give another one. Westerners go at it from here's a blank white canvas or blank canvas, and let's create something. And Eastern art is more of the, hey, there's a big boulder, let's reveal what's already inside of it, right? And we've heard the quotes of, Michelangelo and these other sculptors saying, the masterpiece is already in there, I just have to remove the excess, right? Yeah. And so the painting supplies analogy works, and it's like a sculpture. The superintendent and the project manager already have this built. We just have to chip away at the non-essentials, right? Yeah. If we create a non-visual plan that people can't see, it would be like I'm thinking about the analogy, it would be like creating a list in words of what the painting would look like, or a list in words right. of what the sculpture is not going to do, right? Yeah. We need something that actually shows how the superintendent sees the flow of the work going. So I absolutely love that. So listen, right? Mm-hmm. And as I was hearing you talk, like it's such a litmus test. If the superintendent buys in, that means you must know that it's real, because they are not going to buy into garbage, wasted efforts. Mm-hmm. They just don't have time for it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the approach there. What advice would you give for superintendents that are approaching lean, or oh my gosh, this is such a good topic, but like are like thinking about implementing Last Planner, Takt, or Scrum, or any of these systems? Like, what advice would you give them?
Learn as much as you can. There's lots of resources out there. Get help when you need. There's forums, and you call us. There's lots of practitioners out there who are really good at their craft at helping people along their lean journey. Yep. Also, I would say, realize that it's not going to be easy. None of this is going to be easy.
Yes.
But it's going to be easier than not doing it. So like when it's like, hey, this is hard, this pre-planning, like all of these new ways of thinking about things and new ways of showing things, it's a lot of work, but it's way better than not having that stuff and just hoping that it gets done, and then having schedule delays and all kinds of problems. So, and I would say here's my last one. My last one's always going to be respect. So base what you do, not in any type of control, but just in respect. Yeah. Realize that everything lean is based on respect. Yeah. And the more that we can bring everybody's knowledge and and understanding and the intuition of how they want to build and all of that into the plan, the more we're respecting people, the more they'll be bought in, right? Our trade partners and the awesome foremen out there. And the more likely your lean journey will really gain some traction on your project.
I like that. There's every time I talk to you, I get analogies in my head. Oh, we both do. But the two things that I want to pick up on is you said all of it has to be done anyway. Like there's nothing that we're talking about that's administrative paperwork garbage.
Correct.
It all has to be done anyway, because planning the project, using the right systems, and training are the key differentiators from the studies that have been done. You know, the other thing you talked about control, I think we do a good job of talking about you don't control people, to your point, but we do expect you to control the environment. And another analogy popped into my head. It would be like the superintendent is like the gym coach, or yeah, something like that. Or whoever sets up the gymnasium or the balance beam or the poles or the bars, whatever the gymnasts are using, right? Mm-hmm. Those have to be firm. They have to be steady. They have to be balanced. They have to be level. They have to be safe. There has to be padding, right? They have to be safety rated. They have to be braced. Mm-hmm. So that the gymnasts can do their best work. Mm-hmm. And so we don't expect you to control the superintendent. Well, let me get the analogy right. We don't expect the gym coach or the master coordinator to control the gymnast, but we do expect them to control the environment so that gymnast does not get hurt, right?
That's a great analogy.
I really like that, because when we control the environment, clean, safe, and organized, people who you said we respect can then do their best work. Mm-hmm. So I absolutely love that. And so the other thing that I would say is like when we implement lean systems, what you're talking about again is like focusing on the long-term strategy. I don't want to say don't focus on short-term gains at the expense of the long-term.
Correct.
Focus on both and the long-term strategy. It's like compound interest, which Kevin is the best at doing. Right? Compound interest. Do you want to be rich in 6 months with operational excellence, or do you want to always be penny poor throughout the rest of your career? Right. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. In conclusion, like what is the thing that you would challenge both people to do in summary when talking to superintendents, getting their buy-in, and really creating that partnership with supers and foremen in the field to drive this continuous improvement effort?
Yeah, I would summarize: learn. There's always books that would be my first recommendation, is to read and listen to books. The best ideas, the best minds are all written in books. Like you can find books on all of these subjects. And then the secondary thing is just always base your lean journey in respect for people.
That's beautiful.
And you'll always gain traction if it's based in respect.
I like that. And what you made me think about this is one thing and we always say this in calls is, hey, the supers don't have to fear takt, last planner, or scrum. They are the builders. Nobody's going to replace that. Mm-hmm. Not even AI, not even robots. Even if they did, we're a century away from even getting close to that, right? What we're offering is the system that pairs with.
Yes.
And so it's always people, systems. And so you're brilliant, and right now the world is like this. Like the builder's experience is here and the systems are here. When we implement takt, last planner, scrum, and other lean systems, we're saying we're going to bring the systems to rise to your level so that you can do your best work and not have something hanging off of you. Mm-hmm. And so that's one other thing is like, we're not trying to replace your job. We're not trying to get rid of you. We're not trying to grandstand. All credit goes to you and the PM and the trade partners. But we've got to pair you with the right systems, because even the best superintendent and PM in the world would fail without the right system. Mm-hmm. So,
love it.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you for doing this topic. I hope everybody's gotten a lot from this. On we go.